Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in today's video, we are going to be talking about expensive home finishes that will not last, okay? So these are these expensive finishes that are really beautiful and wonderful, okay? I'm not saying they're not good, okay? I actually will probably put these in my new home because I'm a glutton for punishment and I do this to myself. I don't know why. Maybe I should see a therapist about it, but you know what I mean? These are those expensive things that are beautiful, but they will not last. They will hurt you in the end, but they are gorgeous. They're wonderful, and you buy them not because they are going to last forever, but because they are beautiful and wonderful in the meantime. Some of them will wear in a little bit, but some of them have real maintenance issues or just will not look the same on year 5 as they do on day 1, right? So this is the companion piece to last week's video, which is inexpensive finishes that will last forever. So if you want to check that out, I will link it at the end of this video. So let's get going. Okay, but before I get to those expensive items that will not last, I want to thank today's sponsor, which is Klook. So as you guys know, based on my background, I am currently traveling in Europe. I am in Amsterdam. A lot of you guessed it in a previous video. And I enlisted Klook to really help me get different fun excursions and things to do when you're traveling abroad. So my best friend actually visited Amsterdam last week, and we enlisted the help of Klook to help us get some great excursions for the day. And we decided to do a canal boat cruise in Amsterdam, which is so classic. I just downloaded the app and then went and looked through Amsterdam and found a whole bunch of different excursions over there and picked the one that I thought my friend would really love. We had so much fun traveling the city. I've lived here before, so I know Amsterdam really well, and it was really fun exploring it with my best friend. And it was really great to see it through the lovely vantage point of a gorgeous canal ride. And I just know that, you know, if ever you want to find other excursions in new cities all around the world, Klook is the place to find them. Sign up for Klook today using the link down below. Book with my code nicklewis to get 10% off your first order or 3% off if you're an existing user. Or use the QR code to click the link to download the Klook app on your phone. It only takes a minute and you can get started with whatever destination you're going to. Klook has you covered at amazing destinations at a discounted price, so go check it out. Thanks a lot, Klook, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. Okay, first on my list is going to be designer fabrics or really like expensive sort of designer upholstery. This is very common on very sort of beautiful designer sofas and things like that. But this can probably also include things like drapery panels perhaps, or throw pillows or any sort of upholstery. But really I want to sort of zero in on some of those designer sofas that you might be eyeing. Okay, so for those fabrics, we're talking about things like sheepskin, we're talking silk, we're talking boucle, we're talking velvet, right? Really expensive fabrics that are pricey and beautiful. Yes, they are beautiful. They're oftentimes very textural. They oftentimes come in these really gorgeous, beautiful colors, and they are amazing, but in time, they will be either really challenging to maintain or they will have performance issues that make it really challenging. Okay, so things like boucle can start to wear in time, especially in high traffic areas. It can start to snag potentially, or some of these things might even pill depending on the fabric. Velvet can sort of crush and not look the same as it does sort of on day 1, especially after years of use, especially on something like a main sofa. Something like an occasional chair or a side chair, you might be able to get away with it easier. I tend to advise that if you're going to use some of these fabrics, it might make more sense in something like a side chair or an ottoman or something that doesn't get such high traffic use. But on that main sofa that you're gonna have, or main 2 sofas maybe you choose, or your sectional or something like that, these fabrics can be really challenging over time. Designers love them, of course, because they're beautiful and amazing, and their clients love them because, well, money's no object for some of these people, and why not get something that is really gorgeous on day 1? And you know, if it doesn't look the same, you could always get it reupholstered later or get a completely new sofa when you decide that you want to change out your space, right? So that's why these fabrics oftentimes are really gorgeous and really expensive, but they're not going to make sense for most people. For most people, something like a performance fabric is going to make more sense. You know, even there are sometimes, you know, in the case of silk or linen or whatever, some of these things can actually be blended together with different sort of materials to create something that has a little bit more structure and a little bit, you know, more staying power in your house for the long term. Personally, I would say yes, these are beautiful and amazing, and if you want them, get them. But just remember that they might not look the same years and years down the road as sort of they do on year 1. Be mindful of that before you put it in, and if that doesn't suit your budget or you know that's going to bother you, because there's some of you out there that are just like, I want that sofa. If I spend that much money on a sofa, it better look the same in year 5. It might not, depending on the fabric you choose. Be really careful on some of the wearability of some of these really gorgeous velvets and linens and silks and boucles and things like that. If you really need to have that moment, maybe choose an occasional chair, not your main sofa. Okay, next up on my list is going to be marble countertops. Honestly, this is especially true with sort of those soft marbles. I find that sometimes people forget that different marbles and travertines and limestones and quartzites and granites and all the rest of it, right? They're not all the same. It sort of depends on the type that you choose. Some marbles are harder marbles, some are softer marbles, and so please check with your stone supplier and your fabricator to make sure that you're choosing one that is appropriate for what you're going to be using it for in your own home, and be honest with yourself. So if you're a person that's got like 4 kids and it's a really high traffic kitchen and nobody cleans up after themselves, and you just know that you're just not gonna be able to take care of it, and you also know yourself that you're like, am I really gonna get this resealed all that often? Also think to yourself, am I the type of person that can't stand chips or stains in my marble? If any of that applies to you, you might wanna stay away from marble countertops. These require sealing, and I think that, you know, unless you want to invest in something like Tough Skin, which I have talked to them before and I've looked into it and done some tests myself, or another really high quality sealer that's out there, unless you do that religiously, you're just gonna have to accept the fact that marble usually is a softer stone. Some of them again are harder, so they might make a little bit more sense for countertops, but some of them are really quite soft, meaning they can be really challenging to knock around with pots and pans and things, and some of them can really stain easily. Water stains or lemon juice or red wine or heaven forbid turmeric, oof, gosh, if you're cooking a lot of Indian food, just be really careful about Carrera white frickin' marble countertops that are unsealed, okay? Because that's not gonna go well for you, I can guarantee you that, right? So some of these really expensive, beautiful marble stone countertops, they look gorgeous and amazing, but they might not practically make sense for most people if it's hard wearing. Now these are obviously very expensive, okay? These natural stones, especially these marble slabs, these can be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and you probably aren't gonna just get away with one slab for your kitchen, okay? You're probably doing the island, you're probably doing the back, you're doing the backsplash, like your countertop, you're doing the whole thing. And if you're doing the whole thing, it's very, very expensive. Just again, you wanna be honest with yourself. How much is it gonna bother you if you see stains or chips? Who is in your kitchen regularly, and how is that going to impact the use? And how much is it gonna bother you, or how well are you gonna maintain? Are you that type of person? Are you a person, some of you vacuum 3 times a day. Some of you vacuum once every 2 weeks. I don't know who you are or what you do, but think of who you are and how well you really wanna take care of your stuff. See if you're the type of person that's gonna regularly maintain and seal your marble countertops. They just might not be for you. Something like granite or quartzite generally is gonna be harder. Some marbles, by the way, are harder and comparable to those other ones. Again, check with your stone fabricator. But those harder stones are gonna make more sense. And if you really hate staining, something like a quartz product, which is resistant to stains, which is a man-made material, it's not natural stone, might make more sense for you. Or porcelain also is another great option. Or there's other ones, butcher block or laminate, which are also really awesome and might make sense if you're looking for a cheaper option there. But if you're gonna go expensive marble, you gotta maintain it. Or accept the fact that it's not gonna look the same year 5. Okay, next up on my list is gonna be engineered hardwood, or hardwood in general. Okay, so this is, now we're talking flooring, okay? So last week I talked, I'm gonna make you have to click on that video. Nah, I'm not gonna make you do it. You don't have to watch that video if you don't want to. I talked last week about the importance of luxury vinyl plank, which may or may not be you, but luxury vinyl plank is very, very durable, and it's more inexpensive than engineered hardwood. Engineered hardwood, more expensive, less durable, generally speaking, okay? So why would you ever get it? Because it's engineered hardwood and it's beautiful and it's real wood, okay? The difference between engineered hardwood and vinyl is vinyl has the grooves and things generally, but it's man-made. It's made out of plastic. It's made out of vinyl, okay? So there's no wood involved in the process, but it is waterproof and it's really durable because it's made of vinyl. Engineered hardwood, there's a thin layer of real wood. Depending on the quality of your hardwood, usually the wear layer is one of the indicators of how expensive a hardwood is. So if something is like a couple of millimeters, it's gonna be cheaper than if you have like a 6mm hardwood, which is gonna be more expensive. That's that little wear layer that determines how like regularly you can finish it. If you have a 6mm, you might be able to get away with, taking it down a couple of times. You might be able to refinish it. But let's just assume you're not for a second. With hardwood, you're dealing with real wood, and that's beautiful, okay? That is gorgeous. You're gonna get the warmth of real wood, you're gonna get the grooves because it's got that actual thin layer with engineered hardwood of real actual wood. You get the feel. There's just, I'm sorry, but plastic's never gonna be wood. We can try to make it up all we want, we can dress it up all we want, but they're just not the same, okay? We can dance around it, but it's just generally, I'm sorry, I'm here to just bring you the truth. It's not the same, it's not the same. So you want the benefits of hardwood because you like the warmth, you like the je ne sais quoi that just comes with real hardwood floors, or at least engineered hardwood floors. But if you do go for that, you have to accept the fact that it is going to be more expensive. Could be anywhere between, $10 a square foot. Could be, if you're in the US, $15 a square foot. In Canada, I've seen $20 a square foot hardwood, but you can get it for sub $10 if you choose. Well, something like a laminate might be like $2 or $3 a square foot, or in luxury vinyl plank might be like $4, $5, $6 a square foot. So it's a lot cheaper to go with those options. And again, they're more durable. If you're going for engineered hardwood, it's because you really want wood flooring, okay? You want actual real wood. That's really the main reason you want to do it. Yes, you can refinish it, which is nice, but again, if you're dealing with a vinyl plank, you can't refinish it, but why would you? It's plastic. It's not the same thing, right? So we're having a different conversation there. If you like the real wood feel of engineered hardwood, you're gonna have to put up with the fact that you're paying more money for it and it's not gonna be as durable. It's not waterproof and it will get dings. If you drop a chef's knife on it, it will, it'll dig a little hole in there because it's engineered hardwood. That's how this works. Again, the reason you're doing it is because you really just want the warmth and a feel of real wood. And that's personally what I would choose for myself because I like paying more money for less durable things, apparently, just because I'm a sucker for real hardwood. What can I say? Okay, next on my list is gonna be Roman clay and Limewash paint. So this is a very trendy sort of finishing that you can put on your walls, right? Roman clay is put on with a trowel. Limewash paint is a painted thing. You kind of do one of these little patterns. It's DIY friendly, not for me because I don't do that, because I don't DIY anything because I'm useless, but other people do, and they can show you on the internet, not me, on how to do it. But people Limewash or they Roman clay their walls and they're all really great and they're beautiful. They are more expensive than real paint because real paint, I'm talking like Benjamin Moore, okay? I'm talking like you go to your Benjamin Moore, you go to your Sherwin-Williams or your Behr and you go for that, right? That's paint, okay? Good old-fashioned paint. So Roman clay, Venetian plaster, Limewash, we're just gonna talk about all of them. They are different. They have slightly different applications from each other, but essentially they fit into this category in this video because they are more expensive than regular paint and not as DIY friendly. So you're probably, well, you can, but like it depends on who you are. But you know, you might be able to have to pay somebody to do it, and they are more challenging to maintain, right? I mean, they can ding and scuff and everything just like regular walls can, but touch-ups can be a little bit more challenging over the long term, and it's not gonna have the same sort of durability as you're gonna get from regular paint. So if you want to choose something that is the cheaper option that is going to last you a long time, paint is your best bet. If you're looking for something super trendy and beautiful and got sort of an organic sort of modeled kind of look on it, which is really beautiful, then yes, consider doing some of these new finishes. They are beautiful and amazing, but they're not as durable as regular paint, and they are more expensive because the labor is going to be a lot more intense, and just in general, buying the paints are just always going to be more expensive than regular paint from Benjamin Moore or Behr or one of those guys. It might be worth it to you though, if you see some of these photos that are out there of these gorgeous spaces with this sort of organic textured sort of look to it. They're very matte and very beautiful. They might make a lot of sense for you if that's the look that you really, really want. If you like the look of it feeling so matte and not as glossy as you're used to, don't forget that with regular paint, you can still choose different finishes. You don't have to go for even eggshell, or you don't have to go for a semi-gloss or something like that on your walls. You don't have to do that. You can go for something in a matte or a satin finish, which is going to be a little bit lighter and a lot less shiny and might make more sense for walls. Again, you're sacrificing some durability there because generally speaking, the glossier it is, the more it has more wearability, and it is going to be easier to clean, and it's not going to show, you know, dings and things like that the way that matte paint will, but it's going to give you a little bit more of that look without necessarily going full on into the world of Roman clay and Limewash and things like that. Okay, next up on my list is going to be leather. Leather. So this is a tricky one because leather, really high quality, beautiful leather, is expensive. Kind of like in the case with marble. What it can do is sort of develop a little bit more of a patina over time. It can sort of wear in and look really comfortable and gorgeous. If you like that look, it still makes it into the video though, because a lot of you, I think when you're buying really expensive things, you want it to look as good on day one as sort of it does on, you know, 5 years down the road. And it doesn't. It just looks different. It sort of wears in, and some of you might not really care for that. Leather, of course, can get very expensive. If you want to choose a leather sofa, or you want to choose like a leather seat cushion on a bench or something, and you want to choose, you know, you all think of all the places you could put leather on your walls for all I care. But the point is that if you've got lots and lots of leather in your home, it can get very expensive, especially if you're talking high quality stuff, and it's not going to last as long as some of the performance fabrics or the other options that are out there. Doesn't mean that it's bad, right? Because leather is beautiful and it does have a specific place in interior design, especially on farmhouse style and industrial style, a cottage style, you know, all those different styles. It makes sense. A lot of people really love putting leather in their home, but again, you have to be comfortable, kind of like marble, that it is going to wear in over time and it's not going to look the same. I think what people also really struggle with something like leather is that it's sometimes the inconsistency of where you're using it, right? So in the case of like marble, it's similar, right? Those high traffic zones might wear in and stain, and it might look a little bit different than it will in other parts that are sort of less traffic. Same goes for leather. You might find something like the armrest gets a little bit of wear. You might find the seat cushions get a little bit of wear in the back cushion, but maybe around the edges it doesn't get as much wear. And sometimes people really don't like the fact that you can sort of see the variation in tone depending on the wear over time. And so that, you know, everybody likes the idea of a patina in theory, but I think as you sort of use these things over the long haul, people forget that they wear differently in different areas, and that sometimes can be a real challenge with these sorts of pieces. So just be mindful of that when you're choosing something expensive like leather. Yes, it can be wonderful and amazing, and we all love it and it's fantastic, but it is gonna wear, and it's gonna wear differently depending on where it is and what the use case is, and if it's a high traffic area or not. So something like a performance fabric might make more sense, or even, of course, there are some vinyl vegan leather options that are available now that come up with, you know, I find that they're charging the same prices or even more, because remember when like it was just called vinyl or something, and now it's rebranded as vegan leather, because I think maybe that sounds a little bit trendier and it sounds a little bit better. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but anyway, people are just, that's just all marketing. The point is yes, there's other options out there, especially of course, if you're a person that doesn't, you know, use animal products, that can make a whole lot more sense. You know, those might be a little bit cheaper depending on the supplier and where you're getting it from, but then again, they're probably not gonna have the same wear as you're gonna see from something like leather. Also, one last thing on leather is don't forget that there are different grades of leather to consider, and something like, you know, full alanine, is that how you pronounce it, sort of leather is sort of the top tier, and that would be the best probably leather that is going to really wear in over time. Some of the cheaper leathers, again, we're going to deal with, it could still be quite expensive for, you know, to do an entire couch, but that's even less likely to wear in as much as the sort of expensive leathers do. So, you know, consider that. Are you happy with it wearing in? Do you like the look of it if it does? Are you going to be okay if it's a little bit more inconsistent in how it wears in? If you're not okay with any of it, you might want to skip. Okay, and then next on my list is going to be feather down. Feather down is beautiful and wonderful, and specifically I'm talking about sofas, although we can also talk about pillows as well. So feather down inserts I think are really gorgeous. I think that they really work better than a lot of polyfill, because the polyfill stuff tends to just sort of like bounce back and squish it, and it doesn't have sinkability, which is a term that I may or may not have made up, I don't know. But you know what I'm talking about, when you sink into a pillow and it just kind of has a nice give to it. You know what I mean? Nothing really does that as well as feather down does. But the thing is with feather down is that it does sort of compress over time, and it can lead to pillows being really sort of misshapen. We've all seen that, right? Where you go to your grandparents or your parents' house and you find these feather down pillows that are like from 1981, and you're like, this isn't really doing anything anymore. This is like more, I don't know where the feathers went, but they're gone. Like they're just so compressed down in there that they're just not really filling out the shape of the insert anymore. And it's that moment that you realize feather down over the long term isn't going to wear as well as some of the other options. Again, I'm not saying don't choose it, because I actually do recommend feather down a lot if you're a person that kind of likes that sinkability that's out there. But you also just have to consider that it's not going to be the same. Now, I personally think that inserts for pillows might make more sense than a sofa. So, you know, we're looking at the cloud sofa, and there's other sofas that are out there that are really like feather down sofas. They're gonna require a ton of maintenance. You're gonna have to floof them every time you get up, which is incredibly irritating. Otherwise, they look like garbo. That's just my opinion, but they just generally do, okay? So you have to fluff them regularly. They require a lot of maintenance, and over time, they're just gonna get more and more compressed. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Go for ones that have a little bit more structure. I find ones that have foam, as opposed to just pure feather down, are gonna have a little bit more structure to them, which I think is a more comfortable sofa personally, but that's just me. But if you really want that cloud feel, that's fine. Just know that feather down over time isn't gonna have the same longevity, generally speaking, as most of the other high quality, that's important, foam sofas that are out there, the foam cushions that are out there. So just be mindful of that. And I would say that sticking to things like pillows or things will probably make more sense. But if you're gonna put it in an entire sofa, just be aware of the fact that, you know, it might become a little bit lumpy and a little bit misshapen over time. Okay, so that's it for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Remember that if you love these things that are in this video, it doesn't mean don't get them. And I think it's just more of a warning sometimes of what it means when things age. And sometimes when things are really expensive, they age in and they look really beautiful. And sometimes you just might not be happy with it. And that's up to you, and that's your own personal experience. But I do want to leave you here with the inexpensive finishes video that I did last week, because these are inexpensive and these do tend to last forever. They still may or may not be for you, but I want you to check out that video. So I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.